All right. I guess it is as good a time as any. 1 minute after the hour. Welcome to Selway's Electro Saturdays. Right. I know it said techno in the start screen, but whatever. Today it's electro. I think I want to do like, I'm going to differentiate a little bit more. Like, let's be more clear about like, you know, whether it's techno Saturday or electro Saturday. Actually, for me, every day is techno and electro. So that's what it's all about. Doesn't matter what day it is. And welcome. It's 343 TV. I'm glad to be here again. And it looks like the chat is already popping. I just want to say hello to everybody who is in the house. Funk Tour, Martin Crockett, John H. Kingston III, Brandroid, Enigmatic Onion, Funk Tour, Paul Vanderwerf, Martin Crockett. Did I say his name already? Of course, Max Wild and Thomas from 343 Labs are here. Dave Z, Josh Holiday, Bug Tank, Simple Sam, Southern Outpost. That sounds familiar. There was a record label called Southern Outpost. Will Joseph. Pavel is here. Did I miss anybody? Someone's got some Cyrillic characters in here. I'm just going to say Erup something or other. Hello from Russia. Yes, a bit closer than Mars. And Hank. Hey, Hank, what's up? Nice crew to get me started here today. And a little bit loose. A little bit freeform. I have more fun when I do it that way. It's good sometimes when we have a focused lesson or a technique or whatever, or we have a guest and we have a subject, but the main subject is electro. And I'm here to make music in the electro vein with a couple of ideas in mind that we'll talk about. And, you know, generally that's what we do here on 343 TV. Every day, almost every day of the week, we come on here, we share what we do with you. 343 Labs is, you know, the school that many of us are instructors for, and I do synthesis and sound design and Ableton Live courses. You know, those of you who have been following along for the last year plus know that we have been growing our community this way online. We've got our Discord hopping. You can check, the link is down there in the description. You can see what we are doing in terms of upcoming courses, both online and in person there. We have a link to our website in the description. And usually we do some kind of giveaway. I believe that the sponsor this week is Arturia. We have an Arturia effect to give away. So look out for the link in the chat to join the giveaway there. Give us your email. We'll give you a chance to win a plugin from Arturia. And they have some really good sounding effects. Some of you might recall I did an episode where I used some of those effects to do some kind of dub techno stuff and check out how they sound. And I was impressed. I thought they sounded really good. Y'all are talking about the weather. And Dave Z says, next up, Polka Saturday. I don't know. That might happen when you least expect it. I'll have to dig out an accordion from somewhere and learn how to play it. So Max Wild is saying Selway race against the clock. Like, how fast should I do that one day? I know who did that? Justin did that, right? He like did an against the clock style. How fast can you make a track thing? Yeah, that's a fun challenge. I want to do that actually, like as a contest with a group of people. Like, I think that could be a fun thing where a few people get involved and we like make an event out of it. Let's think about that. Maybe we can do that at the school one time. We've been doing more in-person events. It's really great. We have a new space in New York on 23rd Street and 6th Avenue. Really big, beautiful classrooms with good lighting, good sound. We're going to have a content editing studio room, like streaming room setting up there pretty soon. I'm really looking forward to doing that. And who else is here in the chat? Oh, Oliver Cap. I know that name. Hey. Nice to have you here. Thanks for stopping in. Really great. So let's see what we have in store for you guys today. So I got a two-pronged attack here. So I've been thinking about, as far as electro goes, it's you know, a lot of the times it's easy to just fall into the same sort of electro cliches, use the 808, use the old school analog synths, that kind of thing. But there's definitely, and okay, not all electro is like that. There's a lot of producers out there using new modern sounds, pushing the boundaries. And I was thinking about like what I like to do to kind of mix things up sort of sonically, right? Different types of sounds. So one of the things I've been thinking about lately is incorporating more organic acoustic sounds, but electrifying them, making them work in the context of electro. So, and it's kind of a fine line. Like once you start changing the drum sounds in electro from synthetic 808 style or, you know, synthetic drum sounds to organic sounding drums, it starts to sound like breakbeats. And I actually like exploring that area. Like, what's the difference? Like the beats are kind of the same sometimes, but it's the sounds and, you know, the articulation of those sounds that make it, you know, more breaks versus more electro sounding. And of course, there's always been a mix of the two. Historically, there have been a lot of crossover between those styles. So I'm happy to explore that area, but I want to lean towards the electronic futuristic feeling, even if I am using like an acoustic snare drum sample or something like that. So that was one thing I'm thinking about today, and we'll look at that. I was also playing around, you know, one of the fundamental basic effects for sort of an electro, to make anything sound like electro, it's like comb filtering and the really short delays and a lot of feedback, and it creates that ringing kind of metallic tone. I was doing that again, but a little bit differently. It was sort of, that was one of the things that started off this sketch that I'm about to get into. And another thing I'm doing today, which, you know, is a little bit of a tightrope walk, is trying out some new plugins, because that's another thing I'm doing is, all right, not using the same synths, looking for new sounds, and especially looking for interesting new free plugins that are accessible to everybody. And, you know, it'll be an opportunity to hear some, because usually there aren't a lot of demos for electro using some of these plugins out there. So, I mean, you can still kind of hear it. So it's going to be sort of a will it electro, like, will these plugins work for what I want to do with the way I make electro anyway. Cool. Another little check-in to the chat here. 71 Collective, welcome. Oh, and yeah, this is a nice reminder. This is one of the things that we're real happy about having our new space again, is we can, and also things, you know, sort of equalizing a little bit with COVID and people getting vaccinated and stuff like that, is we're having regular events. We have an Ableton user group every month, I believe, and the next one is for those of you in the New York area and you're using Ableton Live and you want to, you know, learn some more and meet people who are making music with Ableton Live. We have our user group next Thursday. So thanks for that reminder, Max. What else is going on here? And yeah, someone was, because you guys were talking about the we're very like 3 blocks away from, or 2 blocks away from where the old Limelight Club was, infamous club here in New York. It's in an old decommissioned Catholic church. Yeah, that's right around the corner basically. And as Max mentions again here, we named one of our classrooms after the Limelight Club. Abe got, you know, sort of started his career as a DJ, and way back in the 90s, he was working at Limelight. And that's where around there is when I first met him in the early to mid 90s. Cool. And we're already getting production tips. Luminous Cloud says, use the envelope follower to control filter frequency over a break mapped to a different break. That's a cool idea, right? You're taking the rhythm of one thing and mapping it to a something that's changing the tone or frequency of the sound. And then, yeah, I might have to try that. I haven't done that exact thing. I've done similar things with modulating, you know, automating rhythmically, you know, an effect or parameter in a synth, that kind of thing. Very nice. And what else is going on here in the chat? In our first few minutes of just talking and hanging out, Simple Sam asks, where does Arthur Baker fit in the breaks electro spectrum? Well, actually, Arthur Baker has a big part of a very seminal influence in electro. And of course, he was a producer, or the producer with Afrika Bambaataa of Planet Rock, which, you know, everybody knows Planet Rock, I think. You know, that beat. And I'm sure I've talked about this before. I did like this electro funk beats live stream with my friend Jason Shostak, BPMF, and we definitely played part of that and talked about the influences, you know, of Kraftwerk and funk beats and how that filtered into early hip hop and Planet Rock. And that's absolutely seminal. So yes, Arthur Baker is definitely early on a big part of electro history. And also, you know, that's New York. People talk about electro in Detroit, People talk about Miami bass. You know, Miami has a big electro scene. But like New York was even though it didn't get bigger after the early to mid 80s in New York, I mean, of course there was freestyle, and freestyle and breaks are also part of that whole continuum here. But New York is a big part of electro history. So I'm proud to be a part of that in some tiny little way. Cool. Let's see now. We might as well listen to some sounds. Let's stop yakking and move on to what I've got going on here in my Ableton Live session. So I've got, all right, I was just talking about not using typical 808 electronic kind of drum sounds, but of course I still have them in here. And what I'm trying to do is find a balance between acoustic drums and electronic drums. But to make sure I'm rooted in like super electro vibes from the beginning, I started out this idea with just the trigger sound, the 808 trigger sounds. Now, I've definitely talked about this before, and some of you who are making electro know about this, but there's just this little pulse, this little gated signal that comes out of the 808. It's an analog signal that you can use to control another instrument. So like you can trigger an envelope on a synth, or you can trigger a sound to play, trigger an envelope, that kind of thing. You could use the trigger to be the clock for a sequence. So like the SH-101, for example, has a trigger input. So you could have your 808 trigger out controlling when the sequencer plays a note. But the sound itself, and there's a sample of this sound in the Lego Welt's Smackos 808 simulator. This is one of my favorite pre-designed 808 kits out there. It's free. But yeah, inside of this, he was, you know, there's a lot of 808 kits that don't take this sound, and of course he knows. And that's what I started out with, was literally just the trigger. And it's, for me, this little pulse, just this little trigger sound is the most purely electro sound you can possibly have. It is the sound of electronics to my brain. And I put an effect on it. There it is. There's the trigger zap. I'm going to start it out without the effect. I don't know what that sounds. Those of you who are not wearing headphones with like good high and low extension, you're just hearing like a little tiny click. You're not hearing the subtleties of this. I need to turn my headphones up. 1 second. Gonna blow out my ears with bass. All right. So just this is just like one of the most pure electro percussion sounds. So I'm gonna, combining that with acoustic samples, that's gonna hold down the electro for sure. Just that sound. But I was playing around with the Live 11 flanger, and I wanted to add a tone to this. And it's just like, what I did before using feedback with the short delay time, except of course, when it's a flanger, it's a modulating delay. And the modulation options in Live's new phaser flanger effect are awesome. There's a lot more control, a lot more power in how this can move around. So let's hear what it sounds like. Man, it's making me dizzy already. Luminous Cloud has some good history for us about Arthur Baker. Baker actually created the Planet Rock beat for Planet Patrol first. So I wasn't aware of that. It must have been within the same year or within months of each other. Planet Patrol is another really classic electro track. Arthur Baker and Jelly Bean had something to do. Yes, AEIOU was also Arthur Baker. That's a huge hit from the 80s. That's electro/freestyle. Nice comment there from Luminous Cloud. And yes, that's right, Simple Sam. This is Le Click. But it's more than a click now, because it's got this heavy, flanging, crazy, wiggly effect going on, which I really, really like. And I'm going to play around with this. I can play with that feedback. And you can see, like, it's moving around like crazy. That's without the modulation. That's just a delay with feedback. So that sounds awesome, too. But then increasing the amount, we start to hear some stereo movement. There's a phase offset between the left and right of the modulation, so we're hearing different delay times on each side. And there's two LFOs, so there's this crazy tri-8 It's like a bit reduced triangle wave. You can see it's stepped. And when you have this synced to a clock, it sounds like it's playing different pitches. It sounds like it's playing a musical sequence. It's really nuts. You can see the little balls that show you where the delay time is and how they're moving around with the modulation. It's a really great visual. All right, so that is just super trippy and super electro. And I feel like robots are going to come invade. Which I feel like good electro makes you, at least a little bit, you have to be a little bit aware that there might be robots that are going to come in and destroy something. That's sort of like an ongoing vibe with a lot of electro tracks. That plus, for me, it has to have some funk in it. So they have to be dancing, funky robots. Evil or not. All right. So that's what I started with. And I wanted to have this kind of super electro robotic, rigid, trippy vibe. And then I started thinking about acoustic percussion. And I recently downloaded a bunch of I don't use Splice much, but I was like, hey, I've got these Splice credits. I should probably find some samples to download. And I got this pack called Boots and Claps. And I like the sounds of like a lot of people stomping their feet and clapping their hands at the same time. And it's kind of like kick drums, right? The boots stomping on the ground, but it's heavier. It's unique. It doesn't sound like, you're hitting a timpani or something. It's got all these other noises and frequencies in it. It has a lot of character. So I've kind of made a simple kick drum pattern with a sample that I found from the Boots section. And then I have... there it is. It's an offbeat clap. It almost sounds like a whip. It's like really noisy. And it has the recordings of this are these nice stereo acoustic rooms that they are capturing. And it sounds, it's stiff because I'm doing quantized sequencing here, but it has an acoustic character, and then combining that together with that, I think it works pretty well. James Freer, what's up? Nice to have you back. If there isn't robots, it needs to be turned off. Well, there is robots here, guaranteed. All right. So I feel like that's already given me it's acoustic enough, right? But it's also not taking it into breaks territory because I'm not using like an acoustic drum kit with the typical snare and a typical, drum sounds, that kind of thing. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. All right. Now, as I was going through these Splice samples, I came across this like P-Funk sample pack from George Clinton and producers and artists that he works with. And I mean, it's amazing. I won't bore you going through all these like many like funk acoustic drum kit bass kind of loops, but there's some fun vocals in there. I don't usually use this type of vocal sample, but this just jumped out at me when I was going through the pack, and I thought it would be fun to have this sort of weird voice, not like a vocoder. Electro, a lot of times you have these electronic robot voices with a vocoder, but I have this, it's just a couple of people with some pitch shifting on it. It sounds like saying, yeah, or yeah. And I put a weird effect on it. This is actually the vector delay. It's another Live 11 new thing in Live 11. It's from one of the new packs they have. It was inspired by nature. And this is another plugin that I've had for a little while that I forgot about. That's actually really cool. This color limiter. I really like this simple, easy to use. It's like saturation and limiting together. And it's very sensitive. It can really totally squash too much if you're not careful, but it sounds really good just hardly just touching your sound. And it just brings the transients down and helps it sit a little louder in the mix, and it gives it a little brightness and fullness from the saturation. But anyway, what does this thing sound like? Yeah. So the vector delay is, it's modulating the delay times, and you can hear it speeding up and slowing down, but it's not an analog style delay, so it doesn't change the pitch. It almost sounds like it's doing stretching sometimes, and then also when it does fast delay times, it'll do that kind of comb filtering metallic effect as well. So it works nicely for this. Josh Holiday says, as always, don't forget to collect all and save the robots. That is such a Ableton Live nerd electro joke. That's perfect. All right, I like the variation of the this beat pull preset from the vector delay. It sounds really nice. All right, and then okay, where's the boom? Where is the bass? Using a nice long compressed. Where'd it go? There we go. I'm trying to go for like a rolling. Obviously, this is fast. This is 151 beats per minute. It's like on the upper end of tempo for electro, and I love it. You can get such incredible energy and get these kind of rolling feel with the electro vibe, but it's not quite drum and bass tempo. I want to say this is kind of like in there's some, help me out chat, there's some other styles of electro related styles that are at faster tempos. There's like footwork and stuff like that. There's you know what I'm talking about? I feel like I'm encroaching on that area rhythmically, and that's another thing that I like to do is have an electro vibe but then mix it with other genres. Things like that. All right. So I got the boom in there. I got the variation with the flanger going on the trigger zap sound. I got the variation from that weird vocal sample with that vector delay. And yes, of course, breakbeat is definitely adjacent to electro, as we mentioned earlier. But I need more power, I need more energy, so that's where I brought in hi-hats, snare drum. And now it sounds more like, that makes it even more electro. Nice. Martin Crockett says, to Luminous Cloud, you sent me down the rabbit hole to watch Freeze AEIOU video. Singer using the SH-101 as a keytar. Yeah, that you could usually have, you used to be able to get a handle for the SH-101 and wear it like a guitar. I'm already happy with this beat. I'd dance to this. Like, I feel like just a little bit of arranging, this one's almost done. But I do have some other elements to play around with, so, okay. I wanted another kind of layer of acoustic percussion, but still playing with it and having it have some electronic variation and some things that a real acoustic percussion instrument can't do. So I made a little drum rack here with some snap sounds. Let's hear what this sounds like all by itself. And it's alternating between 3 different sounds. And I still need to work on this a little bit. I feel like it needs a little finessing, or at least some mixing. But the main thing that's going on is one of these, and this is a trick that I do every now and then. I've been doing for years with drum samples, is looping them, and it kind of they repeat as if they were going through a delay. But I have more precise sort of control over when it stops. And so what's happening with this one is. You can see it's repeating. I can just change the loop length and it's like repeating faster. And if it goes fast enough, it starts to get that ringing. And that sounds very electro. If I'm careful, I can tune it. I think that sounds like it's in tune sort of now. Not that there's really a key yet. I say in tune. One of the things I listen for when I'm making electro and techno and I'm not thinking about a scale or a key is sort of rather than a key, a tonal center. I can kind of hear how all of the sounds balance together, and even drums or noises, I tune them or adjust them so it sounds like they're all in harmony in some way. So I feel like there is an implied key just from what I already started with. Maybe it's the tone of the drums. Maybe it's something that came out of the effects. It's the there's obviously a pitch in that sample, that vocal sample. So it sounds to me like sort of that this sounds in tune, as it were, or in key. You might hear it differently. It's all in my head. Now, Martin Crockett says, LFO to randomize the sample loop length, maybe. I thought about modulating it in some way. I was just going to use automation, but yeah, you're right. We could totally do that. Let's try it. Let's find that Max for Live LFO. Doesn't matter whether you use the MIDI or the audio version, it's going to do the same thing. I guess if I wanted to be able to re-trigger the phase of the LFO with a MIDI note, I would need to use the MIDI version, but I'm just going to let it go free running. And if I want it to be random, all right, I can choose random. Right now it's just sort of wiggling up and down. But let's do it, let's change it to sync and have it randomize every quarter note. That should be interesting. All right, and we're going to map that to the loop length. That's cool, but I want to rein it in so it doesn't go too short or too long. So we're going to reduce the depth and change the offset so that it stays within a range. Maybe we can go even faster. Let's go to an eighth note. This is kind of like what we were talking about some episodes back. I'm totally blanking on which episode it was, but yeah, having sounds that constantly randomly sort of evolve, that definitely does it. Nice idea, Martin. I agree. Techno bass. I think we're in that realm, at this tempo especially. All right. So we're geeking out, nerding out on the glitchy snap samples, all right? I'm going to temporarily not do the randomizing there for a second. And let's think a little bit about sounds, bass sounds. And I'll show you one more thing, then we'll take a little break and talk to the chat before we go into the next sort of phase of today's show. And again, I'm kind of bouncing back and forth between more electronic versus more organic sounding tones. The programming and the rhythm is still it's not organic. I'm not playing these instruments like acoustic instruments, right? It still sounds electronic overall. I'm talking about the tone of the sounds. But now we're going back, swinging the pendulum back towards very electronic. I wanted to have like a very heavy, dark, evil sort of electro-y synth going on. Right? And this is just an analog. Live's default, included subtractive analog style, virtual analog synthesizer. And I've got a couple of square waves, detuned a lot. And there's a little bit I have hard sync on, right? Which is, slaving the oscillator to another oscillator so it re-triggers the phase. And what that does when you hear it, if you hear those kind of high frequencies, it gives it sort of that ripping effect. That's what's happening. Actually get rid of that reverb or echo, whatever that is, for a second. So I'm going to turn off the module. I'm not going to mess this sound up. Actually, before I mess it up, let's actually duplicate it, and then I'll mess up the clone rather than destroying the sound that I like. So going to bring the I'm removing the modulation. So there's some pitch modulation of that oscillator, but because it's synced, you don't actually hear the notes rise and fall. You hear the overtones rise and fall. And then right, so that's just oscillator 1. If I get rid of the LFO mod of the pulse width and the LFO mod of the pitch, right, that's just straight And the ratio here, the percentage for the sync, that's what we're hearing change. And I feel like this hard sync is definitely a very electro thing to do with a synth, and especially if you modulate it the right way. So I like the idea of going. You can hear it's rising up. All right, so that's what I was playing with this sound, is a little bit of careful modulation of the sync ratio, and then I've also got pulse width mod, and it's giving you that little bit of a wobble, and you hear there's some internal sort of phasing with the frequencies, and it sounds like chorusing, but it's not actually chorusing, and that's really what's giving it the most movement. The LFO modulating the pitch is also messing around with that hard sync ratio, and it's a very electro kind of sound. I mean, you'll hear sounds like this on all sorts of. Someone name a producer out there, because I'm just blanking today on names for some reason. Throw out a name of an electro artist or producer that makes sounds like that. Probably all of them, right? All right, so let's take a break here. I'm going to take a breath. Nice to be here with everybody on my techno/electro Saturdays today. Actually, it's just Electro Saturday today, and we're here brought to you by 343 Labs Music Production School, based in New York and Berlin. We do online classes. We do in-person classes. Check out our website. The link is below in the description. Hey, if you want to join the community and be a part of something that's growing, and check out the events that we're doing, and just keep abreast of the situation here with 343 Labs, join our Discord. That link is also there in the description. You can get feedback on your tracks. You can join our sample challenges. We have a sample challenge going on right now, right? And yeah, you can check that out. I mean, it's a lot of different people, a lot of different genres of music. If you're into electro, look for me on there. I check in every now and then, and I think I got to go back and there's a channel for feedback, and I know someone recently posted an electro track, so I'm definitely going to go in there and see what they're doing. So definitely, big plug for the Discord channel. Join us, subscribe here if you haven't. It's amazing to me how in the last year how much the channel has grown. So thanks to everybody who's been a regular viewer and joining in here in the chat, and those of you who are making our community really kind of fun and happening. So a reminder again that we have our giveaway. It's an Arturia effects plugin of your choice. There is a link here somewhere in the chat. If you haven't seen that, just scroll up, or maybe, I don't know, Thomas, you can pin it. That's always a good idea if you haven't already. And you can sneak in. We're about to announce the winner on the show today, probably in about 15 minutes-ish, 20 minutes towards the end of the show. And hey, Abe Duque. All right, I asked questions for what electro artists do you know makes sounds that sound like that? For sure, our good friend Jason Sostek. BPMF definitely uses a lot of tweaky, kind of hard sync, bright sounds like that. Dave Z, it suggests Ultradyne. I absolutely agree with you. And this has nothing to do with artists that use hard sync sounds, but Southern Outpost says put a donk on it. And I know what you're talking about, and I have put donks on things. I don't know if I'm going to get to a donk today, but donks are, don't be afraid to donk every now and then. Put a donk on it. Nice. Laurent Rigotaz. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. You're suggesting a 303. As it happens, I did think about adding a 303 to this to have it be in a little bit of an acid mode. I may still, but before I get there, I think I want to try out some of these new plugins that I've been looking at. So speaking of, all right, so this isn't the only place to find new plugins, but it's a really good place if you want to find new, unusual instruments and effects. KVR. Some of you might be familiar with KVRaudio.com. It's been around forever and ever. And I was just browsing. They have this really amazing database of all these, plugins and other types of software. And, you can limit it to whatever type of platform you're using and what format and whether it's an effect or an instrument or whatever, and whether it's free or for sale. And so I was just looking at new plugins that are free that are available for OS X. And some of them I'd heard about already here, but there's quite a list of stuff that you probably, there's a bunch of stuff that's on here that you might not hear about otherwise, because KVR periodically does these developer challenges where, people will create new plugins according to whatever challenge that they've done. And there's a lot of amazing stuff that's come out of this. So, and I know a couple of the ones that I downloaded today. I don't know if I'm going to get to all of them in the stream, but there were some that were a result of these challenges that they have. So I downloaded this Full Bucket Music. I've looked at before. They've been releasing all these amazing free plugin emulations of vintage classic synths and things like that. And this is a Korg DW8000 virtual, and I loaded it up briefly. It sounds so close to the original, down to like things that are wrong with it, like little clicks and things that were annoying. I'm like, it's off camera. There's actually a DW8000 in this room that's not being used because it needs to be repaired. But so I was kind of impressed. This one sounds really cool. And it has this very 80s digital synth sound, which can be good for certain genres. For sure electro, but synthwave, anything related to that kind of era of music, this is going to be useful for. So that I have. And then this is a very modern synth. Now it's set, whoa, that's some crazy zooming in that just happened there. This is called the OS-251 from Onsen Audio. I'm going to play around with this a little bit. This is actually a very easy to use subtractive synthesizer, but it has a very clean digital modern sound to it. And it says lo-fi. I wouldn't say it's not lo-fi in the terms of it sounds like kind of, soft and tape saturation and floaty, like lo-fi hip hop sounds, that kind of thing. It sounds very powerful and bright. And I suspect this definitely will electro. It's got very clean, sharp edges around the sound. So that's definitely good for sounding electro. On the very opposite side of electro tonal spectrum, this is, I really like physical modeling synthesis. This is a new free physically modeled snare drum. It sounds so realistic. It's incredible. And it's gonna need some tweaking and some effects processing to kind of really sound electro, but I'm up for the challenge, and I'd love to be able to take like an acoustic snare drum and tweak it and make it weird to make it fit into an electro or techno situation. Another plugin I'm looking at is this one called Nettle. And, this is the kind of interesting thing you can find on KVR, people that are, and this is from one of their developer challenges, where people are kind of pushing boundaries and finding new ways of doing synthesis and new interfaces and new results, right? And that's definitely what I want when I'm making music and I'm trying to be forward thinking and futuristic and weird or experimental, is I'm looking for new sounds. So I have high hopes for this one. I previewed this for a moment and I liked it. And it has a random button, which is always fun, because you just come up with crazy noises without even trying. It just should be cool. There's another Full Bucket instrument we might get to called Wisp Air, which is kind of like, this is a digital wavetable synth, but it's like knob per function. There's no menus, there's no extra routing, it's just what you see is what you get. So it's kind of giving you like a modern digital wavetable sound, but with a simplified interface if you're used to more subtractive synthesis. I mean, it is still kind of subtractive synthesis, right? It's only the oscillators that are doing the wavetable thing. The rest of it is subtractive. So it's sort of a nice balance with these super plugins like Serum and Vital and etc. that have crazy complex modulation routing and stuff. This will give you a digital edge to your sounds, give you that wavetable kind of cool moving through the waveform effect, but more straightforward to use if you're just getting started with learning how to use synthesizers. That's pretty great. And all these are free, which is amazing. And finally, we've got GR8, and this looks like a Korg mini log. I don't know. Does anyone has a mini log, look at this and see how it kind of has some similar functions? This also, I previewed very quickly, sounds good. Very clean and clear. It's very loud, actually. I have to turn it down. And then This one's a fun one. Definitely going to try this one right away. This is a virtual Synsonics V. It's an analog drum synth. Very classic sound. Very powerful, edgy, kind of dirty. Definitely good for electro and other electronic genres. Nice. And yeah, we got a comment here from Simple Sam. Full bucket is great. Only one guy, as far as I know. That's amazing. If it's just one person, one-man developer churning out these really great free plugins, that's impressive. Very nice. And as for getting back to production thoughts, Tchaikovsky. I like that. Tchaikovsky. Like Tchaikovsky, but psycho. This needs an aux-88 direction. Mo. Right, so yeah, let's get back. I could see that. Maybe doing some low vocals that talk about something futuristic, but maybe with a vocoder, and then it's going to start sounding a little bit like aux-88. But I'm not those guys. I got to do it in my way, however it comes out. And let's try and see what we can do. Well, actually, I never got to putting the synth part in there, the analog bass part. Let's hear if I still like it. I'm not 100% sure I love what I came up with, but let's try. Trying to make it like it's fast techno bass, but I also want a dark and sinister vibe, and I feel like this kind of does it. I did have one other part created for this already. I'm kind of iffy on it, so that's when I was starting to think about new plugins and other new sounds to try out with this groove. But I do have a physical modeling sound that I made that I pulled in from another track to see how it would work. That's kind of cool for an effect. I might not let that loop if that just comes in every now and then. Now that I hear it, I like that. It sounds very like alarmingly futuristic, like it's jumping out and getting your attention, and it's bright and spacey and atmospheric at the same time. So let's see which new plugin should we try first. Let's try this OS-251. All right. I'm curious. I'm gonna bring in this Excite acoustic snare model, and I don't know if this is going to work. I already have a clip here. Whoa, that didn't work. But you hear it sounds so real. Let's simplify that. Let's just make it just the backbeat. It's very responsive to velocity. You don't have to assign it. It just acts like a drum behaves. The tone changes as well as the volume changes depending on how you hit it. Let's simplify this. It doesn't work, right? It sounds like clunk. Sometimes, I don't know. I knew that some of these sounds weren't going to work today, but at least it's part of the experimenting and figuring out, will it electro? Will this plugin electro? It sounds better when it's thinner and brighter, that's for sure. It sounds cool with the lower snare tension. It's sounding a little more noisy. I like how it sounds when it's low and more ringy, but it's too long. I would need to tighten it up some other way. Could throw a gate on there. Do it the old school way. Ay, ay, ay. Still too... I don't know, it's so ringy. Definitely, just like a real acoustic snare, you have to mix it. You have to process it. You got to, gate, EQ, compression, saturation, maybe reverb. That's what it takes to make a realistic snare fit in to an electronic groove, I think. Okay. Another way to approach this is not using it as a backbeat. Like, how could I... I like it better like that. And that's doing stuff like that. It's like making little ghost notes. It's making it more breakbeat-like, isn't it? And again, that's what I was talking about at the top of the show. Is sometimes electro and breaks, they're kind of rhythmically similar, but then depending on the sounds, you know, it's kind of leaning one way or the other. Let's just throw a quick delay on that. I'm curious to see what'll happen if I do like... Let's just try some random presets. You know, you get there. You're getting the comb filtering again. You're getting the metallic tones. What else can we do? I kind of like that actually. If I stop talking and I start nodding my head and moving my shoulders around, it's probably because I'm getting into it. So yeah, that wasn't so hard to like take that very dry acoustic and, you know, sounding snare that's like a really accurate model, synthesized model of an acoustic snare drum, and make it fit. It takes a little tweaking, takes a little experimenting, but I feel like that is a credible part, and it's still electro. It's just adding that little acoustic tone that I was looking for. So I might go with that, but we'll see how it goes. Let's see. Someone, Bushman Goat, asked, does that new snare sounds out of time? It's funny. It was perfectly quantized. The clip was, when I first brought it in on the second and fourth beat, it was right on time, but it might have sounded a little off, not just because of the timing of when the note was playing, but the shape of the sound. You know, it's not as tight and precise as these electronic drums. And that's actually something to point out. These boots and claps samples, in order to get them sounding tight, I had to move them earlier off the grid a little bit because they don't have a sharp, fast transient. They kind of fade up a little bit. So moving the sound a little earlier makes the peak of the sound, you know, the peak of the sound happens a little bit later than when the note starts. So you want to, when you're using acoustic sound, sometimes it makes sense to slide them off the grid in one way or the other to get it to fit the groove properly. So actually, a good question that brings up something that you need to think about when you're combining acoustic sounds, especially percussive ones, with electronic instruments. And, oh, thanks. Krioch, snare sounds good, like Aphex Twin Quoth vibes. That's another thing. Like, Quoth is an amazing track. It sounds like he's banging on tubs and buckets and doors. It's like, but it's so techno, but it's so acoustic at the same time. Nice call out there. And, all right, we only have 10 more minutes. We got to try more plugins. That's part of what today's agenda is, trying out new plugins. So that was Excite, which I quite like as a physical model. It's very detailed, and yes, it will electro. You just got to process it. What else have we got? What is next? Let's do the OS-215. And this is what it looks like. Let's hear how it sounds straight out of the box. That's actually not, that's not the default. That was me fooling around with it. Let me reset. It's really easy to use this plugin. There's that little reset button. It'll go back. Awesome. All right. I like that it's got that little shiny, bright edge. It sounds like a wavetable to me. Or actually, you know what? That's not right. It sounds like an additive sawtooth. It sounds like a bunch of sine waves put together. It's got this little like bright sheen on it that you hear in additive sounds. It's got a really long release somehow out of the box. When the notes overlap, you hear some phase difference. It's funny, the attack's at 0, but it still has a little bit of a soft ramp up. I wonder if that's just how the oscillator is. But definitely, I mean, a synth like this that just has this bright, sharp, pure tone to it is going to be great for electro. And let's check out some presets and see if I hear something that sounds good. I want to say, I think I'm like either B or B flat. That sound is, I think it's sharp. I think I'm B flat. Just doing some fast 16th notes in there. Let's see how that turns out. I'm gonna tweak the sound to make it maybe sound a little sharper if I can. All right, and then maybe quantize that, duplicate it. I don't want it to overlap with the other bass sound. I just want to kind of fill in a pocket that's open. Maybe it's good just only there. I wish it was a little more percussive. It kind of has, like, again, even with the attack on 0, it has a little bit of a soft transient. Noisy. Yeah. All right. Let's try another preset real quick, and then we'll move on to one more probably plug-in before we call it a day. That's cool. Interface is a little pokey. Sometimes I hit that arrow and nothing happened. All right, that's kind of like a hi-hat sound in the effects section. Let's try some of the polyphonic presets. I see why they call it lo-fi. It's kind of got a little bit of the aliasing up here. Right, it's also very dry. It doesn't have built-in effects. You definitely want to. Very simple. Huh. I don't know if I love how the filter sounds. All right. I was wondering if I want a part in this that has kind of an ambient spacey direction for a contrast. That's okay. It's not amazing. It's sort of a simple sound. Again, I think, there's a reason they call it a lo-fi synth. You can hear it. I like the tone of the synth better when it's full on bright kind of sawtooth. So I think I might lean towards using it for that. And let's see. We have our winner. Congratulations to Decatron. You are this week's giveaway winner. We will be in touch with your prize details shortly. So yeah, thanks for playing. Awesome. All right, it's 1:56, and Luminous Cloud says that chord sounds so Rother. Well, thank you. I'll take that as a big compliment. So, but I feel like it needs some space. That's, even the most simple sort of lo-fi synth sound, once you start putting effects on it, it's really going to be a whole nother story. That's already better. Just this modulating delay. I could live with that. I feel like I want to tweak it. I don't know. I'll probably end up going through some other sounds. It's definitely, though, putting that spacey melody on top is bringing the vibe down. And remember, we started with more of an upbeat kind of, right? We've got just this rolling groove. It's still dark and weird, no matter what, no matter how I slice it. All right, we got through a couple of new plugins. There was a lot more to go. I don't want to rush it, though. It's 1:58. Let's just look at one last plugin. We can go a couple minutes longer, and that is this Synsonics. Right, it comes with the noise right out of the box. It's such an accurate emulation that as soon as you turn it on, it's got a hum and background noise, and that can be turned off if you don't want it. Right, and then the next thing that happens that I was just slightly confused at first is it's got a key mapping for the individual sounds. So there's 4 different sounds. Tom 1 is C2, Tom 2 is C3 to C5. And then down here we have a snare module, which is D2, and a cymbal, which is F sharp 2 and A2. So you got to make sure you're in the right octave to play it. Right, it shows you in the middle which one you're playing. Let's go down. There's Tom 1. And that's just on one note. So I would say that's probably, if you want to use this for a kick drum, which you can, you just turn the pitch down. I would use Tom 1. And then what else have we got? We've got, there's the cymbal, and somewhere there's the snare. All right, so let's figure this out. Bring the pitch down. Faster decay, that's more of a kick drum, right? Let's get rid of that noise. That noise is just too much. So what I'm going to do is take this MIDI here, and I'm going to transpose the notes. That one's supposed to be the kick drum, so that one needs to be down on C2, right? Huh. Is it? Is it not? All right, let's get rid of that. The snare drum's working. There it is, C1. All right, so already there's an issue. I'm playing C1, but so this is off. It says C. It says you have to play C2 to play C2 to play that tom, but I'm playing C1, so there's an octave shift there. That's confusing. Let's not pan the kick drum to the left. Really simple controls, but it sounds so close to the original synth drum module. There's the snare. Oh, I like the low bit rate, like video game style. All right. There's a hi-hat. Oh, I've totally messed up the copy paste. That's terrible. I'm supposed to be a pro. What happened? It's because I'm rushing. You know I'm rushing. Let's just do quarter notes. Super video game style. Now, how does that sound all together? Just kind of filling in a little lo-fi video game layer in the middle of that beat. Again, I mean, the pendulum's gone back and forth. I've gone from electronic to acoustic and back, sounding very digital or very analog or very organic, and then trying to make it all fit together. That was sort of the vibe today. Thanks to everybody for hanging out with me. Everybody in the chat. Wow, a lot going on here from Luminous Cloud, Laurent, Crioch. Did I say that right? Congrats again to Decatron for winning this week. Look for hope you enjoy your Arturia effects processor of your choice. And yeah, that's it for now. I will see you again next week. Adios.